In the streets of Wilmington, Delaware, and stretching into the urban sprawl of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, the Shotgun Crips held a fearsome reputation. A gang with deep roots and a brutal code, they operated as a network of power, fear, and loyalty, their influence crossing state lines like a dark thread weaving through the region's underbelly. At the heart of this network stood Dwayne Alexander, a 41-year-old high-ranking member whose name carried weight in the streets. Known for his calculated authority and unyielding control, Alexander was not just a participant in the gang's operations, he was a decision-maker, a man whose approval could mean life or death. On June 5, 2025, a federal jury in Wilmington delivered a verdict that shook the foundations of the Shotgun Crips operations: guilty. Dwayne Alexander was convicted for his role in one of the most chilling crimes in recent Delaware history, a meticulously planned kidnapping and execution that began with a personal dispute and ended with a single bullet in an industrial park in Yedden, Pennsylvania. This wasn't just a murder. It was a demonstration of power, a lesson in fear, and a glimpse into the inner workings of a gang that thrived on control and retribution. This story is not about a single act of violence. It's about a system, a hierarchy of rank, loyalty, and violence that binds men like Alexander to the streets and fuels cycles of retribution that devastate communities. It's about how a minor disagreement can escalate into a death sentence, how grudges become executions, and how justice, though slow, eventually catches up to those who think they're untouchable. The chain of events began in the summer of 2021, in the humid, tense streets of Wilmington. At the center was Kimon Burton Roberson, a lower-ranking member of the Shotgun Crips. Young, ambitious, and eager to prove his loyalty, Burton Roberson found himself embroiled in a dispute with a Wilmington man whose identity remains protected in public records, likely to shield his family from further pain. The specifics of their conflict, a slight, a debt, a perceived disrespect, remain undisclosed, but in the world of street gangs, the smallest spark can ignite a firestorm. Wilmington, a city of just over 70,000, is no stranger to violence. With a history of economic decline and systemic challenges, it has long been a battleground for gangs like the Shotgun Crips, who exploit poverty and desperation to build their ranks. The city's proximity to Philadelphia, just 30 miles away, makes it a satellite for larger criminal networks, with drugs, guns, and influence flowing freely across state lines. For the Shotgun Crips, Wilmington was both a stronghold and a staging ground, a place where local disputes could draw the attention of higher-ranking members in Philadelphia's urban core. Burton Roberson's dispute wasn't just a personal matter, it was a test of his standing within the gang. To let a slight go unanswered would signal weakness, not just for him but for the Shotgun Crips as a whole. In gang culture, respect is currency, and disrespect is a debt that must be paid, often in blood. Burton Roberson didn't act alone. He rallied a crew of fellow Crips, a group of men bound by loyalty to the gang and its code. Together, they decided the Wilmington man had to pay. What followed was not a spontaneous outburst of violence, but a meticulously planned operation that revealed the chilling efficiency of the Shotgun Crips hierarchy. The group tracked the victim to his home in Wilmington, a city where narrow streets and close-knit neighborhoods can feel like traps for those targeted by the wrong people. Under the cover of darkness, they forced their way into his residence. The attack was brutal and coordinated. Multiple assailants wielded blunt objects, bats, pipes, or whatever was at hand, beating the man into submission. His hands were zip-tied behind his back, rendering him helpless. This was not a robbery or a warning. This was the prelude to something far darker. The victim was forced into a vehicle, and the group drove north, crossing the Delaware-Pennsylvania border into Philadelphia. The journey itself was a statement of intent, an escalation from a local dispute to a regional operation. Philadelphia, with its sprawling neighborhoods and history of gang activity, was the perfect place to make someone disappear. The Shotgun Crips had deep ties in the city, with connections to drug trafficking, weapons smuggling, and other criminal enterprises. For them, state lines were irrelevant. Their network operated as a single, cohesive machine. Waiting in Philadelphia was Dwayne Alexander. At 41, he was a veteran of gang life, a man who had climbed the ranks through years of loyalty and ruthlessness. Court documents and trial testimony paint a picture of a leader who didn't need to raise his voice to command respect. His authority was absolute, his decisions final. Alexander wasn't just a bystander in this crime, he was its architect. He supplied the murder weapon, a firearm that would become the instrument of the victim's death. More than that, he gave the order, the final approval that sealed the man's fate. In the Shotgun Crips chain of command, Alexander was the general, and his word was law. The group didn't take the victim to a random alley or a secluded forest. They chose an industrial park in Yedden, Pennsylvania, a small borough just outside Philadelphia. The location was deliberate, a quiet, isolated area with empty lots and abandoned buildings, where screams wouldn't carry and witnesses wouldn't linger. There, in the shadow of rusted machinery and crumbling warehouses, they executed him. A single shot to the head. Clean. Efficient. Final. The victim's body was left behind, a grim testament to the gang's power. For the Shotgun Crips, this wasn't just a murder, it was a message. Cross us, and you will disappear. The crime was cold-blooded, but the law was relentless. The investigation that followed was a masterclass in persistence, coordination, and detective work. It began with the Wilmington Police Department, who were alerted to the victim's disappearance and quickly connected it to gang activity. But this wasn't a case that could be solved by a single precinct. The crime's interstate nature demanded a broader response, pulling in multiple agencies: the FBI, the Edinburgh Police Department, the Pennsylvania State Police, and Delaware Probation and Parole. The investigation spanned nearly 4 years, a testament to the complexity of dismantling a gang's operations. Detectives pieced together a puzzle that stretched across 2 states, relying on a combination of modern technology and old-school police work. Surveillance footage from Wilmington streets and Philadelphia highways provided critical leads, capturing glimpses of the vehicle used in the kidnapping. Cell phone records mapped the movements of the suspects, placing them at key locations before, during, and after the crime. Eyewitness accounts, though scarce in a community gripped by fear of retaliation, offered fragments of the story. And informants, often low-level gang members or associates looking to cut deals, provided the insider details that tied it all together. The Shotgun Crips, like many gangs, thrived on silence. The code of the streets, don't snitch, don't talk, kept witnesses at bay and evidence hard to come by. But the investigators were undeterred. They knew that cracking a case like this required patience and precision, chipping away at the gang's wall of secrecy until it crumbled. Every detail mattered: a partial license plate, a burner phone's call log, a whispered tip from an informant. Slowly, the picture came into focus. To understand this crime, you have to understand the world that birthed it. Wilmington, Delaware, is a city caught in a cycle of economic struggle and violent crime. Once a hub for industry and finance, it has faced decades of deindustrialization, leaving behind pockets of poverty and despair. The city's violent crime rate has consistently ranked among the highest in the nation, with gangs like the Shotgun Crips filling the void left by economic opportunity. For young men like Kim and Burton Roberson, the gang offered a sense of belonging, power, and purpose, however destructive. Philadelphia, just a short drive away, is a larger stage for the same story. The city's history of gang activity stretches back decades, with groups like the Crips and Bloods establishing deep roots in its neighborhoods. The Shotgun Crips, a subset of the larger Crips organization, carved out their own territory, leveraging connections to drug trafficking and weapons smuggling to maintain influence. For men like Dwayne Alexander, the gang was more than a lifestyle. It was a career, a way to climb from the streets to a position of respect and fear. Gang life operates on a rigid hierarchy. Foot soldiers like Burton Roberson carry out orders, proving their loyalty through acts of violence or crime. Mid-level members coordinate operations, moving drugs, guns, or money. And at the top sit leaders like Alexander, who wield power not through physical force but through authority. Every decision, from a drug deal to a murder, flows through this chain of command, each link reinforcing the gang's control over its territory and its members. This case also highlights the psychology of gang violence. A dispute that might seem trivial to an outsider, a slight, a debt, a moment of disrespect, can become a matter of life and death in the streets. For gang members, every interaction is a test of status. To let an insult go unanswered is to invite further challenges, to lose face in a world where reputation is everything. When Burton Roberson's dispute escalated, it wasn't just about settling a score. It was about proving his worth to the Shotgun Crips and maintaining the gang's dominance. The investigation wasn't just about catching the killers. It was about dismantling the network that enabled them. The Shotgun Crips weren't a loose collection of street toughs. They were an organized enterprise with clear roles and rules. Prosecutors had to prove not just who pulled the trigger but who planned, approved, and facilitated the crime. This required mapping the gang's structure, identifying its key players, and tracing the flow of orders from the top down. By 2025, the investigation had zeroed in on Dwayne Alexander and his co-conspirators. Alexander wasn't the first to fall. 5 others had already been convicted for their roles in the crime. Kimon Burton Roberson, the young Crip whose dispute set the chain of events in motion, was convicted and is awaiting sentencing. His role as the instigator made him a key target for prosecutors. Stephanie Bultz Ramirez, whose specific involvement remains undisclosed in public records, was convicted and also awaits sentencing. Her presence in the case hints at the broader network of accomplices who enabled the crime. Rodney Chambers, another piece of the puzzle, was convicted and is pending sentencing. Jamil Saluddin, convicted for his part in the kidnapping and murder, added another name to the list of those held accountable. Josiah Rivera, a minor at the time of the crime, faced justice in Delaware's Superior Court. His youth didn't shield him from the consequences of his actions. Alexander's conviction was the capstone, a blow to the heart of the Shotgun Crips' leadership. He wasn't just a participant. He was the man who gave the order, the one who turned a grudge into an execution. His trial, held in a federal courtroom in Wilmington, was a clash of evidence and testimony, with Assistant U.S. Attorneys Michelle L. Morgan and Benjamin L. Wallace presenting a case that left no doubt about his guilt. They showed the jury a story of power, hierarchy, and cold calculation, a story of how gang decisions are made not in chaos but in a chain of command. The courtroom was more than a place of judgment. It was a stage where the full scope of the crime was laid bare. Witnesses, some trembling with fear of retaliation, recounted the events of that fateful night. Forensic experts detailed the ballistics, linking the murder weapon to Alexander's supply chain. Cell phone data placed him at the heart of the operation, his communications with Burton Roberson and others forming a digital trail that prosecutors followed like breadcrumbs. The jury saw not just a crime but a conspiracy, a network of individuals working together to enact a brutal vision of street justice. Acting U.S. Attorney Dylan J. Steinberg didn't hold back in his assessment of the verdict. In a statement, he called the crime brutal and senseless, a stark reminder of the human cost of gang violence. He praised the tireless work of law enforcement, from the local officers who first responded to the victim's disappearance to the federal agents who tracked the case across state lines. Steinberg's message was clear: violent gang activity would be met with the full force of the law, no matter how long it took or how high the target. Wilmington Police Chief Wilfredo Campos echoed that sentiment, emphasizing the closure the conviction brought to the victim's family. For nearly 4 years, they had lived with the pain of loss, the uncertainty of justice delayed. The guilty verdict was a step toward healing, a sign that their loved one's death would not go unpunished. Campos spoke of the community's resilience, of the need to stand against the fear that gangs like the Shotgun Crips impose on neighborhoods already struggling to survive. The FBI's role was critical. An acting special agent in charge, Amanda Koljeski of the Baltimore field office, didn't mince words. She called the crime horrific and ruthless, a calculated act that demanded an equally determined response. The FBI's involvement brought resources and expertise that local agencies couldn't match, from advanced surveillance techniques to informant networks that reach deep into the gang's inner circle. Koljeski highlighted the years of painstaking work, the countless hours spent analyzing evidence, and building a case that could withstand the scrutiny of a federal courtroom. The investigation was a regional effort, a coalition of agencies united by a single goal: to bring down the Shotgun Crips network. The Wilmington Police Department provided local knowledge, mapping the city's streets and identifying key players. The Edinburgh Police Department offered insights into the crime scene, their jurisdiction marked by the industrial park where the victim's life ended. The Pennsylvania State Police contributed manpower and expertise, combing through evidence that spanned 2 states. Delaware probation and parole officers played a quieter but crucial role, monitoring suspects and providing intelligence that helped connect the dots. This case wasn't just about one murder, it was about exposing the playbook of gang operations. The Shotgun Crips didn't act in isolation. They were part of a larger ecosystem of crime that thrived on coordination and secrecy. The kidnapping and execution of the Wilmington man revealed how personal disputes could escalate into interstate conspiracies, how a single order from a leader like Alexander could mobilize a team of loyal soldiers. It showed the reach of gangs like the Shotgun Crips, who could operate in small cities like Wilmington and major hubs like Philadelphia with equal ease. The victim, unnamed in public records, was more than a name on a case file. He was a son, perhaps a brother or a father, a man whose life was cut short by a conflict that should never have turned deadly. His final moments, bound, beaten, and driven to his death, were a stark reminder of the human toll of gang violence. For his family, the pain of his loss was compounded by the years of waiting, the uncertainty of whether justice would ever come. The conviction of Dwayne Alexander and his co-conspirators offered some measure of closure, but it couldn't erase the trauma or bring back what was lost. Dwayne Alexander now faces life behind bars, his conviction a testament to the law's reach. His co-defendants, Burton Roberson, Boltz Ramirez, Chambers, Saludin, and Rivera, await sentencing, their fates tied to the same chain of events. The verdicts sent a ripple through the shot.